Hey guys, I'm Haven the Hare. Welcome to the next installment of How Haven Did It. This is where we're going to talk about the behind the screen, the stuff the DM side. Now, we are running Hoard of the Dragon Queen right now. We are doing basically all of Chapter 2 and a very small smidge of the beginning of Chapter 3, just because that's the way my party did it. If you have any questions, comments, feel free to grab my email down below. Throw comments down. I love talking about this stuff. I love the idea of DMing. I love the sandboxing, the brainstorming, and all the creativity that goes involved in this. In fact, I even like these. What people see as a problem with some of these canned campaigns, like Hoard of the Dragon Queen, originally when I was done. Granted, I haven't read the entire thing of the full new Edera yet. That book literally just came out last week. But to me, that's the fun. It's supposed to be open. It's supposed to have spots where you can throw your own characters, your own twists, and your own villages. I mean, that's that. But I digress. So, how did we do this? In the DM side of things, my party ended up, unfortunately, missing out a little bit and went straight in for a physical attack against the command tent, threw all caution to the wind, and were arrested. I don't know. As from a DM standpoint, I've actually been really analyzing this myself, going over my audio recordings. So there's a DM tip for you, by the way. I record all of our sessions. I just throw actually a little lapel mic to my phone and I clip it on my DM screen so I can hear myself. It's a great way to take notes. I don't take good notes as a DM. I've realized that over the years. And so being able to record it, I used to do it on an old tape player, you know, the old-fashioned actual tapes. Come on, I'm not the only guy who's that old. But it was a good way to go back and be able to reference. I can actually listen to the whole session and find out what things I might have missed, what I didn't make notes on. I sometimes catch things that the players said that I wasn't paying attention to because I was busy looking up a rule. I miss, I've heard byplay that I didn't catch. It's a great way to record and document. And I'm not talking audio quality that I'm going to share with the world. No, this is purely just from my notes and from my players' notes, so that we all have a record of this whole campaign that's just audio-based. I love it. Do it. It's great. There's a couple really good apps out there that you can use for it. So I've been going over and over trying to figure out where I went wrong. Did I mess up by having my players be so powerful in the beginning? Those of you who watch the other videos, you'll see that we actually had my players start off at level 3 because in 5e, that is where the cool abilities per classes start up. Most of my players being experienced players, even if they're not experienced with 5e, they played D&D in the past. They wanted those cool abilities to kick in. They didn't want to be level 1. And I kind of get that. I totally do. So even with me scaling things up and adding extra and doubling bad guys and making them a little bit stronger and giving them some special skills and some like double attacks and stuff like that, for the most part, they were pretty badasses through Green Nest. It wasn't until the end when they had no chance to rest and were out of spell slots that they really start taking some damage. But they really did. They did a good job. They felt like badasses through a good chunk of it. And I think maybe that could have played into it because by the time they get to this, and I thought that maybe I had stressed it enough that this was a camp with 300 humanoids in it. I mean, between the Raiders, cultists, kobolds, there was a lot. And they were 6 people. So, in the end, the fact that they decided to go right after the command tent, and even though they did have the fighting going on between the kobolds and the cultists that had taken up about a third of those individuals that were in this area, the fact that they decided to still assault that tent, I don't know if they thought they could do it, and did they really think they could take on like 300? I mean, just the number of actions is not in their favor. Maybe I messed up, maybe I didn't. I don't know, but that's what they did. So they got arrested, and they were going to be killed in the morning. They got caught. They were shackled and tied up and thrown in with the rest of the prisoners. Because it's already happened, I have no problem telling you this. At this point, the reason that they were shackled and as easily got out as they were is that Furlum didn't think that they were a problem. You know, they got caught easily, and I made the judgment call that Furlum basically thinks that the adventurers right now are a thorn in their side. So the adventurers are actually easily able to pick their locks. They weren't, strip searched. If they were really thought to be a menace or a problem, it could have easily been a lot more. We could have gagged them all to make sure that there was no spells could be cast. They could have been strip searched to make sure there was nothing they had on them that would be able to do anything. and then, hog-tied, as well as then chained to the ground. That's how you'd make sure nobody does anything. What, you didn't think of that? So the party was able to escape relatively easily from their binds. Spells were cast to put the guards to sleep. Great, that was wonderful. And then they scaled their way out after the suggestion was made from the prisoners. It was a relatively easy layout for them to get back out. I feel actually my party kind of stressed themselves out a little bit more in the week in between on how they were going to get out of this, more than what actually happened. I think it was actually relatively quickly that they got out. But that's the turning point. Because after they got out, they then went back to Green Nest. They got the mission then from the ocean to go back and spy on the caves. When they get back to the camp, and they found out that it's completely empty, them escaping with Leotian under the noses of 300 individuals was what sent the commanders, Furlum, Sinrath, and I'm going to say it once throughout these two videos, Razmir was a new name that was thrown out this past weeknight, panicked. The adventures that they thought were just a thorn in their side, and the monk that should never have been there, that they had found in the ocean, suddenly just disappearing from captivity under the eyes of the entire camp, sends them into a panic. Totally plausible. You threw people aside thinking, they're nuisances. And then in minutes, they disappear on you. Big bad guy, big good guy. You panic at that point. Crap, I underestimated them. So of course, when the party makes its way back to the raid camp, the camp's empty. However, there's still meat being delivered into the cavern. And so I played it off that the meat still being in there, that was the hook. That's there's still something there. There's something worth investigating. They should still check it out. At this time, though, my party, I feel, has kind of gone the complete opposite. I feel like we're super penduluming here. The group went to super cautious again, which actually, I take that back. The group was super, super cautious when they got to the camp in the first place. They did a whole lot of scouting. They spent, in game time, 6 hours watching and waiting until it got dark and figuring out what they were going to do. Around my table, I want to say it was 45 minutes to an hour of them trying to figure out how they're going to get into the camp. I mean, that was a lot of time taken up just trying to figure out what they were going to do in the camp. Not so much time this time. They just set the guard rotation up on how they're going to watch things go through. Saw the cart go in twice and then come out empty, full of, herd beasts. And that was enough for them to go, and the fact that it is empty now. So now, as we sit here, they're hooked into what's going on inside of the cavern. I felt that was a good, easy way to get them to focus on that cave again. But let's also talk about some other things. I've been using in this campaign the Matt Corville's advice on having your party or a member of the party retell the synopsis from the previous night or the synopsis from the previous session. I've been going around to the table. I'm having everybody do it. I have found that this really does tell me what has stood out in my party's eyes. Now, unfortunately, I also feel like I'm skewing this because my party watches these videos. For Pete's sake, Narisa's dogs sit around with her on the bed and watch the videos every week. So I am dum-dum mister to her dogs. So I might be skewing this because they are also hearing my take on it, but I will say that I do feel like I'm able to at least know what has stuck out to them, either from the videos or from this, what's sticking out, what's made an impression that they remember it. I don't have anybody who's doing some serious note-taking or anybody who's asked to listen to the audio before they start the next session. Again, though, that audio I record every session is available to my players if they want. But do you really want to sit down and listen to 3 hours of a game you guys played like a week ago? I do, but I'm the DM and I'm going back over and redoing all of my notes. That's part of being the DM, right? So it is kind of fun. I recommend it. I do. It's something I'd never done in 30 odd years. I just made myself feel really old. I have been doing DMing on and off for 30 years. Okay, that just reminds me that I turned 40 in a couple of days. Something else that I found that I really struggled with over this, and maybe you didn't, maybe you wouldn't have, but I was trying not to railroad with both the prisoners and the kobold, but I felt like there was information that the party really needed. And then how do you convey through a kobold who, in my opinion, because of the way their intelligence is set up, is with like a -2? I think if they have an intelligence of 7. So to me, that puts them at about like middle school, maybe a little lower of a middle school student level of intelligence. Maybe elementary school, somewhere in there, right? So there's a lot of how do you convey these important pieces of information that I felt like they really should know before they made a decision. It was with the prisoners going up the wall as opposed to trying to sneak out past everybody when I'd already told them that the way that the walls of all of these plateaus were set up were easily scalable if they focused. They'd already done it a couple of times. So I wanted the fact that I felt like they were forgetting it in between the sessions. So having the prisoners speak up and go, let's just go up the wall, and then finding out later that they could have cast spider climb on people. The other one was like with the kobold in the rear guard. They should know that the rear guard's coming up, and the fact that the rear guard's going to report in. I wanted them to have that information. I felt like it was really important for the story and for them to be able to make an educated decision. And the kobold would have known. The kobold saw them reporting in all the time. They were the ones that probably got reported to. Or if not, they saw them walking through, the camp on the way to report in over to Rasmir or to Aware of Purple. So Eddie would have known. But then how do you portray that to the characters without it feeling like I was railroading them? And I really struggled with it. I sat there and actually let the dice kind of decide it. I was like, I'm just going to roll a d20. And if it's over 10, if it's 11 or higher, I'm just going to let Eddie tell them. If it was under, I'm going to let them kill off the rear guard. Because that's what they were going to do. They're going to ambush the rear guard, which they totally could have. Not a problem. They've been killing these cultists like that. If Remy hits a cultist with both daggers, they're dead. If Arkin can hit anything with her sword, it's probably going to die. So I felt bad that they didn't know that little piece that they would have if they had interrogated somebody. And they did, though. They had captured somebody. They'd actually made really good rolls. And they'd gotten a befriended ball, but it was a kobold. So yeah, I will admit, that's what I kind of let happen. If I'm indecisive, if I can't figure out something, I will let the dice decide. Flip a coin. Although, again, if I actually flipped a coin in the middle of a game and let it fall and look down at it, I'm pretty sure I'd stop every conversation around my table. Either way, that's what I did. That's how I handled it. I still kind of felt like I at least was like, you should know this. And I felt like it was a DM handing them a piece of paper, but and occasionally you have to. The way that the things crumbled, I felt like it was still needed, so we did it. I wanted to give them a chance to be able to sneak into the camp without it being alerted when the rear guard didn't report in. As it was, they ended up waiting, and if they'd killed the rear guard, then they would have been more on high alert, but it probably still wouldn't have changed anything because they waited for like 6 hours before they even snuck in. And when they did sneak in, it was not a direct assault. They did do the whole kobold thing, which was cool, which is fun. It was cool to see them actually try to incite the riot amongst them. And it's kind of funny. About half the party is kind of curious on what happened to Eddie. Callie more than anybody else. But, it's going to be kind of interesting. We don't know. So there's my quick tips on at least Session 2. Session 2, I felt, was a lot more role-playing intensive. There was a chance for a little bit of combat, but really, there's no good way to have a combat in this situation that's not going to end up with, out numerous odds. I mean, if you try to fight your way out, you're dead. It's 300 to, it's, you know, what, 50 to 1 odds, and the actions are not in your favor. It was just too much. This one doesn't lead it to a lot of fighting, which I feel bad. I really do. My party, I really do feel like they really are enjoying the combat, especially with the fact that they had so much of it in Green Nest. I mean, they were averaging 2 to 3 tactical miniature-based combats a night in those 3 hours. And then to go for 2 sessions that had nothing. I feel like my party's kind of fiending for it, so I'm definitely going to give it to them in the next session. The next session will be, again, that's the other part, by the way. I got thinking about how was I going to try and make something that is, you know, okay, if I'm doing every inch is 5 feet for most, you know, 28 millimeter games, and across was something like 600, 700 feet across, that's not fitting on my table. So I really just didn't. So we ended up actually using a lot of, I laminated the maps that you can do. I have just a single sheet laminator, and then I let the players like kind of mark on it with dry erase markers, and we kind of figured out what they were going to do with it that way. It still gave them that tactical feel of being able to draw and write things off, and I could mark off what ones they burned down. It knew nowhere near the feel of the tactical maps that they were used to that I gave them in the first sessions, but it did help. So I do recommend that, by the way. And you can pick up a laminator for a couple of bucks, and it really is nice to have all of your maps laminated, and then I can reuse them too. Like if I ever decide to run this again, I've already got the Raiders camp, you know, laminated in 2 different ways, one landscape and one not, with a couple notes and stuff on it. I have Green Nest laminated now, thanks to my wife. And my wife's the one who's been doing that. She's been asking me if there's maps. I give them the maps, and she prints them and laminates them for us. It's really helpful. I go pick up a laminator. It's great. I'm going to laminate a bunch of the cards for bard spells and such that we found, and for Callie, to make it easier for her. I'm tempted to do the same thing for my druid, to give her a better idea of how the spell works. I think she's struggling with some of the being able to figure out like how the preparations work. She's got this long list of everything, and then remembering which ones to have prepared. I think actually doing the cards would really help, especially for new players, being able to actually say like, here's your deck, you can choose this many. You know, I think that really will help with a visual aspect of like, these are the spells I can use, these are the ones I can't. You know, I can use these eventually, but I can't right now. I think that's going to help her. So I'm probably going to print and laminate some of those up too. And that's how Haven did it for Chapter 2 of Hoard of the Dragon Queen. I'm Haven the Hare. If you have any questions, comments below, email, find me on Facebook, find me on the Book of Faces. I just said that twice. It's 2 different ways of saying the same thing. Find me on Reddit, find me on Twitter. It's either this is going to be this mug you're going to see, or it's going to be me as a furry that a friend of mine as an artist did. If you want to help support me, buy my card game down below, and or the link to my Etsy store where I make chainmail dice pouches. With that, I hope you make all of life's saving throws.